If you're watching any of the finance, the money trends lately, you will see that everyone is freaking out about some impending crash. They're all talking about the market, they're talking about inflation, they're talking about real estate and interest rates. All important, but they're missing this really glaring thing. What seems to be missing is the conversation about this crisis that is staring us all directly in the face. I have mentioned several times that we do have to stop following these dopamine trends, these 1 minute attention killing trends. We cannot continue like this as a society. The only way to change this is to stop consuming and stop acting in this way. Stop doing this behavior. And today I really want to expand on this a lot. This is a multi-part series, and what I had focused on previously was how we need to prioritize real skills, but what I failed to focus on, what I failed to detail out is exactly why. What is this crisis that we are facing right now as an entire global Western civilization? Because the real collapse is, yes, it is about money, because it will affect your finances, it will affect my finances, and the people with the skills that I am about to discuss, the people that lack the skills I'm about to discuss, will be affected monetarily. They will financially be affected by this. It will not matter in the end how much money you have. If you lack these basic skills, you will be on the wrong side of a massive, terrifying gap in human competence that will destroy, without a doubt, the quality of life in every culture, in all classes of humans who use technology today. You will notice that my phone gets really hot and everything starts to lag. Just bear with me. My audio is working and this is just what it is. Become a member if you want to help support me to get a new camera that can handle me creating these videos. So I will get into very specific skills at the very end of this series. But what I want to talk about initially is the whole point. The crisis that I am talking about is a competency crisis, yes, but it is an operator competency crisis. There is a specific type of personality, a specific type of brain function that is becoming extinct. It's a generational issue that I'm going to get into right now, because there is a special generation that I am coining. I am calling it the alpha tech operator generation. This generation that we're about to talk about, that you can become a part of, we in this generation are primed to take over the entire world. Now, if that sounds like a big promise, well, stick around. This is a deep dive. This is going to be a long conversation. But by the end, you will understand exactly what skills you need, what skills you need to develop, and how you need to develop. And you'll also understand exactly how we got here. Because I don't like to just tell you what the issue is. I want to tell you why, so that we can avoid it in the future, so that we can change things and be better in the future. Now, the first concept of this entire series that we are going to be focusing on today is going to be the Boolean brain. So I'm going to introduce one of the skill sets. It's really just a type of processing power that a brain has, and you can grow it. And so we're going to be talking about that. But in order to really understand it, we want to talk about it on a generational scale, about what created this Boolean logic brain and how this micro generation that I have coined as the alpha tech operators developed this exact type of brain. This actually was an accident. It was a specific point in time, but it created the exact type of brain processing power that we need to avoid this impending collapse. The collapse is coming. I'm not saying that the collapse won't happen, but you can financially be above it. You can competently escalate. You can become the one-eyed king in the land of the blind. So the Boolean brain is actually ingrained into your mind. This processing power, this logic is ingrained in your mind as you are growing up. It's a developmental skill. That means that the best way to hone it is when you are very young, in your foundational years, in your formative years. And because this Boolean brain, I've coined this word, I don't know if it exists, but I call it the Boolean brain, and I will discuss in just a few minutes exactly what that means. But this Boolean brain, because it is a formative nature, because it develops and functions and is used throughout your life, instinctually, it becomes a part of you. But that's why we have to look at this generation. And that's why I coined the special generation. Because you may know from a lot of my videos, I am not satisfied with the 20-year generation gaps, these 20-year clusters. Like, we have nothing in common with the late millennials, right? I am not in the same generation as a millennial who is at the other far end. They call me a millennial. I'm actually a Gen X, depending on where you go. 1984, a special year. Now, I'm not saying that the Alpha Tech operators are 1984 people. They're not even Zennials. They actually started around the 70s. And that's why this year generation thing, I don't think is adequate. I believe that you have to split up generations. You have to split them up based on the technology that they're using. In this day and age, year spans they don't function correctly. There is a type of brain that is being developed starting around the 70s, especially when computers and digital age started coming about. And that Boolean brain, that's when that was starting to come about. Now, there are operators who are creating the digital system, and then there are users. The users do not have the Boolean brain. The operators do have the Boolean brain. See how that works? So that's why it's not just a year generational span. This is a functional, how you process and work and engage with the world. That is the type of brain skill power I am talking about right now. And that's why it's not me just saying my generation. This is just a type of generation. There is an operator generation that was created that is no longer being created. It is stopped. We are now in a user generation. And that's the generational divide that I want to talk about. That's why I created a special Alpha Tech operator generation. I really like the name, and you could actually be a part of it. You could be, which is exciting. So I was born in 1984, and if you look at all the demographics, places like Harvard used to categorize 1984 as a tail end of a Gen X. And the Pew Research Center decided to move the goalpost, as I mentioned, and now 1984 is the beginning of the millennials. So I wasn't told this. This wasn't happening until I was already graduated from high school. So for a really long time, I thought I was Gen X. But honestly, Zennial, none of it really fits with my generation because I see myself based on what I was engaging with. The entertainment and the technology and the culture I was engaged with at the time. And that just seems really fair, especially when you're coming into a space like, say, the Industrial Revolution. There is a span where from this year to 2 years later, everything is different. You develop an automobile, everything is different, but you still have some people using horse-drawn carriages. You still have that for a very long time. When electricity was introduced, you still had people using candles. So as you can see, there are operators and users during these different technical advancing times. And usually during a certain stage, the operator and users mesh because they're the beta users. They have to test it, but they're also building it. And so that's where the Alpha Tech operator mindset is born. The Alpha Tech operator mindset, I believe, also was in existence in the early Industrial Revolution and at any time when technology was advancing at a rapid stage, changing culture significantly to people who were using completely different types of technology just as a daily life. That is when class differences started to become really apparent. Technologically, the extreme differences became bigger. And that's why I think it's important to understand the micro generations and the difference between the operator and user mindset that is created during these times of development and evolution, digital, technologically, mechanically, when we are growing culturally in such a massive dynamic way, you're going to get a divide within the actual generation of the people who are creating and testing and dealing with that, and the people who are just using it. It's just two different types of people, two different types of processing powers. Their brain is engaging with the world in two different ways. What I feel like was specific about my generation around 1984 in the 1980s is that we had 1 foot in analog, 1 foot roaming the streets, and then 1 foot in the digital. Going online, it was still a place you had to go. The internet online was a place you went. It wasn't part of life. It wasn't in your hand on a phone. We had at one point pagers, beepers, some people call them. I mean, so I was in that stage. I think that was my middle school. I had pagers, but let's even go a little earlier. I was dealing with a computer. I didn't have a mouse. So I'm working with computers. I really loved Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and I wanted to figure out where she was. I always did. So I had to log on. I had to know the exact MS-DOS code. I had to do my little C drive structure to boot up my floppy disk of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. And then I had my Encyclopedia Britannicas, the entire handheld, the entire, all of them, you know, they used to come door to door and sell them. Yeah, we had those. And I would run over and I would grab one because they would talk about a certain tribe in Africa. And I was like, okay, I gotta research this tribe. And I would figure out with encyclopedias and this floppy disk and no computer mouse, so I did have a keyboard, and I would figure out where Carmen Sandiego was. So I did not play Oregon Trail. I know they call us Oregon Trail people. I didn't do that. I never once have played Oregon Trail in my life, ever, actually, to be 100% honest. However, I did play Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego all the time. So maybe those were happening at the same time. I'm not fully sure. I feel like I was getting on computers much younger. My sister was 3 years older. Perhaps I wanted to do stuff that she was doing, but I was in an age that I was just on computers almost immediately. I was customizing stacks by middle school. Okay, so I am dealing with technology. My VCR would break. Yeah, we had VCRs. My VCR would break and I would take it apart and I would fix it and put it back together as in elementary school. These were my hobbies. I don't think I had a lot of friends. Doesn't sound like it. No, I did. I had street friends. So, like friends on the street. Not like street friends. Like, you know, on the same street as me. I had a girl, her name was Kara, and she lived right up the street because we had a hill, and she was my best friend all growing up. So, yes, we did roam the streets, you know, the mean streets of Colleyville, Texas. So it was not. It was a very nice suburb in the Dallas area. And yeah, so it was a nice privileged area and we did roam the streets freely, but then I would go home and I would use dial-up to get online. So I remember in late elementary school, I had AOL, I was on Instant Messenger. I should not have been. I was sneaking on there. It wasn't like my parents were like, go at it. I was dialing up in the middle of the night to like chat. But as you can tell, in this very early stage of processing, I just wanted to play my computer game and I had to type in codes. I had to know exactly how and what I needed to say. All the user-friendly stuff that I do really appreciate Steve Jobs for creating, developing these interfaces and fonts. We did not have those options in my day. And honestly, I believe having that friction, having to type in exact codes, having to know exactly how to access that, having to grab the book and do them at the same time, the handheld encyclopedia with the computer and using my brain and all the friction that was involved just to play a game online, or I wasn't even online at that time. The internet had not come into my house by that time. That was still floppy disk era. I had CD-ROM by the time we had dial-up. But you can imagine that I'm this kid and a year later, suddenly we have mice? Like, whoa, what's a CD-ROM? I was really in this age of things are getting easier, but they were still hard. They were still tough. So what I see the alpha tech generation as, it's the early days of the computer creators in their garage, Steve Jobs era, when they just had a crazy idea of bringing a box to life. Imagine even the thought process to think about that. And then the alpha tech operators do continue through the days, my days, the elementary schools where we had the old Macintosh computers with the rainbow apples with the bite out of them, and we had to play Kid Pix. Do you remember Kid Pix? It was this Boolean code. We had to actually use strings of zeros and ones to create animations, pixelized animations, as well as audio, images, little videos. It was on this plain beige box. It was built by this little baby company that nobody cared about, and that company had partnered with schools, I guess, because it was in my computer lab at my school as part of my elementary, like 1991. I'm a tiny child doing zeros and ones, somehow realizing that this connects somehow and is creating this little man that's hopping up and down, and little sound effects and little music. Dee, 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 dee. This is what I was doing in a school course. There was a class, apparently. I had a time of day that I had to go to the computer lab. I had typing lessons on a Macintosh when I was a child. So whatever was happening at that time was changing my brain. I believe for the better. What I was using was some of the very first front-end user-facing interfaces that were created. These were the first creations of integrating and getting that frictionless thing that we have now. This was the beginning. And then this alpha tech operator mindset, it continues to the teenagers, who was still me as well, doing the CSS codes, doing the HTML, creating the websites, the first Hello World websites, creating our MySpace pages. Let me tell you how much code you had to learn to customize your MySpace pages, not to mention the cultural social warfare that we had going on to get people in our top 8. And technically it was top 7 because, yeah, everyone was friends with Tom. We did not know who he was. I was a young girl. Seems odd now. And we were creating this digital world from nothing. Nothing existed yet. We created it. We conceptualized it. We engaged with the thing that didn't fully exist to make it exist. Despite doing all of this heavy lifting, all of this digital world development, we don't even get our own generation. We get some micro generation, a zennial. No, early millennials were in the wild, wild west of social media, of the internet. We were flung out there. We were beta testers. We were builders. That was us. Decade-based, generational categorizations, when you look at it that way, just seems so antiquated and so out of touch with reality, with what was happening, what is happening in the world. They don't functionally translate in order to be able to effectively define the worldviews and the way that humans were engaging and processing the world around them at that time. There was a fast-paced digital landscape happening in front of it. We were in a car, it's speeding by, and we also have to use it, and we have to comprehend, and we have to build. And we've also got to live in the real world, because that still existed separate from our digital world life that we're creating. This metaverse used to actually be a separate thing. It wasn't just like, this is meta. Things were evolving right before our eyes. So that's why I call these type of operators the alpha tech operator generation. Afterwards, they're user generation, and that's fine. It's just your brain works differently. These alpha tech generation, this operator generation, have a special lens of how we view and interact with the world. We don't expect the world to be frictionless. We expect to be able to micromanage everything to make it do exactly what we want. We are the operators. Our generation, the alpha tech operator generation, has the skill set to be the one-eyed king in the land of the blind. We are the people that will actually overcome this financial collapse, this AI bubble burst, everything that's happening right now. We are the reason why the world will not be destroyed. And no one's even paying attention. Because while we were in the trenches, we were building the skeleton of the internet. Look at what the corporate world was doing. The boomers were up there rigging the meritocracy. They hoarded the wealth and they rigged the system to keep power as long as possible. They added all of these endless educational and corporate loopholes, an entire horse and pony show just to keep us down there trying to get up somewhere. They forced us to work extremely hard for a place that they didn't have to work nearly as hard to get. They made us go to school and get degrees for entry positions that they just got, some of them not even going to high school. They told us to go to college for the exact same jobs they didn't need college for. And this is just to keep us in a holding pattern, to keep us busy, to keep us building, to keep us working for them, to protect their own leadership roles. They built an entire system designed to keep us, my generation of Alpha Tech operators, as these janitors of a digital revolution. All while they were coasting at the top. They treated us like the IT department, and granted, we were most of the IT department. We still are. And guess what we did? We put our heads down and we did the work. We like working. We like figuring stuff out. We were built on friction. I had to do all this stuff just to play a game. The game and all of that, the friction was part of it. Because we are the people who manipulate the digital system nonstop, we micromanage that to get it to do exactly what we want, to get it customized exactly how we want. Remember when Apple decided to try to make everyone use the same font? We were like, no. We're going to go over here on the Dell. We're going to go on our PCs. We're going to keep using our customization. And then Apple eventually stepped up and said, okay, we're going to give you a color wheel instead of choosing 10 colors you can use. That's my generation. We micro customize, we go into the code, we go into the ini file, and we make the changes so the game does what we want. We have no problem spending 3 hours of our only free time making the game work perfectly and not even actually playing. This is my generation. So we learned how to make these machines work for the boomers, for our bosses, for the older Gen X's as long as possible, as well as keeping this infrastructure for the youngins, for the Gen Zs that were coming up, for the Gen Alphas, now Gen Betas, all waiting for the boomers to leave, to retire, so we could take leadership. In the next section, I will cover the boomers and why they refuse to leave, and now they cannot leave, why we are having later and later retirement, and what that is actually causing, the detriment it has caused to my generation, as a generation that has now been skipped over. We do not get leadership positions because now they're going to the younger people, as they should be. And we are about to see the entire economy and the corporate system collapse. Instead of the late Gen X, the millennials, running the castle that we built, that we maintained, this digital world, we've been skipped over. And now a bunch of users who don't even know how a computer works. They don't know how to build the computer. They're going to be the leaders. It's a scary concept, guys. This system is crashing around us all because we are aged out, and the younger generation, as a younger generation should, is getting their jobs. There are not enough jobs for boomers not to retire. There are not enough leadership positions for us to stick around any longer. When the lights go out, when the Boolean logic needs to be rebuilt, who are they gonna call? the one-eyed men in the land of the blind. So that is what this series is called. This is my introduction setup. I have a few more videos that I'm going to get slightly deeper into this. The next video, we're going to talk about the boomers and the meritocracy system and how our entire system created a pressure cooker that completely destroyed the millennial psychological mindset. We've seen it implode. You're going to see the actual side effects of all of what I have just explained before our very eyes so that we understand what Gen Z is inheriting. We're going to analyze exactly what Gen Z is coming into, exactly why Gen Z is the way they are, because people always give them a bad rap. You know what? They deserve it in a lot of ways, but why are they that way? They are that way because of the society around us that has given them a completely trashed system. What would your mind look like if you were created a frictionless system that actually was completely broken so you could press a lot of buttons, but none of those buttons did anything anymore? That is what we're dealing with AI. Right now, we are pressing buttons frantically, and it's not even looking at the words we're using. It's not looking at the button we're pressing. It's saying, oh, you're pressing that button over there, but I like this button. This button is in my data code, and this button is the lowest common denominator answer, and so I'm gonna light up this button. It doesn't care that you're pressing this button. It lights up this button because it wants to, because it guesses you probably don't mean this button. That button's for smarter people. You need the stupid button. That's our world. Gen Z is being treated like idiots. So what do you expect to happen to people who are being treated like the intelligent button they're trying to press is the wrong one? They're being gaslit. They're being psychologically damaged. There's a lot of different reasons for this, but I'm going to get into one of those next. So let me know what you think so far. You can like, comment, you can subscribe, you can join my membership, you can mosey on to another video, or you can do absolutely nothing at all. I'll see you guys.
Let's go.